June 1, 2019. I never thought I would keep a diary, but lately I feel the need to put my thoughts somewhere, even if it's just on paper. My name is Robert Thompson, and I'm a 35-year-old auto mechanic living in a small town in Michigan. Life here is simple, maybe even a little boring to some, but I've always appreciated the quiet stability of it. I run the local auto repair shop, a business I inherited from my father. People around here know me for my honesty and skill under the hood. It's an honest living, and I'm proud of it. At home, I have a loving wife and two beautiful children. My wife, Anna, is 33. She works as a kindergarten teacher at Little Oaks Preschool, the only preschool in our town. Anna has always had a kind heart and a gentle way with children. That's one of the reasons I fell in love with her. Our daughter, Mia, is 8 years old and as smart and sassy as they come. And our son, Tom, just turned 5 last month. He's a little ball of energy who just started attending Little Oaks, the same school where Anna teaches. We've been married for 10 years now. We married young. I was 25, she was 23. Right after I finished trade school and she got her teaching certificate. Over the years, our life together has been peaceful and steady. Every morning I wake up at 6:30, get dressed in my coveralls, and head to the garage to open up by 7. Meanwhile, Anna gets the kids ready, making sure Mia's backpack is in order for elementary school and Tom's shoes are on the correct feet before he goes off to preschool with her. I usually swing back home for lunch or at least call to check in. By 5 p.m., I close up the shop and head home to have dinner with my family. This evening was like any other. I got home a little after 5, wiping grease from my hands with an old rag. The smell of Anna's cooking greeted me as I walked through the door roast chicken with herbs, if my nose was right. It's a Monday, so that means family dinner night. Actually, most nights are family dinner nights for us, but Mondays we make a point to all sit together at the table no matter what. I stepped into our cozy kitchen and saw Anna at the stove, her brown hair pulled up in a messy bun, still wearing her work clothes, a simple blue blouse and tan slacks from the day. She turned and gave me a warm smile when she noticed me. "Hey, honey, welcome home," she said, wiping her hands on a towel. "Hey," I replied, leaning in to give her a quick kiss on the cheek. "Something smells great. You need any help?" "No, everything's almost done. You can get the kids washed up for dinner, though," she said, gesturing toward the living room where I could hear the low sounds of the TV cartoons and our kids giggling. I found Tom and Mia exactly where I expected, sitting cross-legged on the living room rug, toys strewn about and the TV tuned to some brightly colored cartoon. Mia was braiding one of her doll's hair while sneaking glances at the screen, and Tom was zooming a toy truck around making loud vroom vroom noises. "Daddy!" Tom shouted when he saw me, abandoning his truck and launching himself upward. He barreled into my legs with a hug. Mia looked up and grinned. "Hi, Dad, you're home," she said, her face lighting up in that way that never fails to melt my heart a little. "Hey, kiddos," I laughed, scooping Tom up into my arms. "How was school today? Did you behave for your teachers?" I gave Tom a mock-serious look. He giggled. "Uh-huh. Miss Carroll said I was real good today. I only got in trouble one time." Mia chimed in proudly. "I got an A on my spelling quiz." "That's awesome, sweetheart." I reached over to tousle Mia's hair, which made her scrunch up her face and giggle, pushing my hand away playfully. "I'm proud of you. Both of you." Tom tugged at my sleeve. "Daddy, I'm hungry. Is dinner ready yet?" "Almost, buddy. But first, let's go wash those hands, okay? Can't have you eating with oily fingers." He held out his little hands, which were slightly sticky from whatever snack he had earlier. I carried him to the bathroom as Mia trailed behind. After a quick hand washing and face washing for Tom, since he somehow had marker scribbles on his cheeks again, we headed to the dining area. By then, Anna had set the table. The roast chicken I smelled was there, accompanied by mashed potatoes and green beans. Simple, hearty food, the kind we both grew up on. We all took our places. I sat at the head of the small wooden table, Anna to my left, Mia and Tom in their usual spots. Dinner was filled with the usual chatter of our day. Mia talked excitedly about a new game she played at recess. Tom interrupted with a story about a giant bug he saw on the playground, which Mia insisted was just a ladybug. I noticed Anna smiling softly as the kids talked over each other. She caught my eye and gave a little shrug and a grin. Our eyes met, and in that brief moment I felt a warm contentment. This was our life noisy, a bit chaotic with two kids, but fundamentally good. Robert, did you remember to call the plumber about the kitchen sink? Anna asked after a while, turning the conversation to a household matter. The faucet had been leaking for a few days. I shook my head, swallowing a bite of chicken. Not yet, sorry. I got swamped at work today. Frank Henderson came in last minute with his truck transmission issues. Took longer than I thought. I'll give Jim a call tomorrow first thing. Jim is the local plumber, an old buddy of mine from high school. All right, she said, not sounding upset. Just don't want it to get worse. Maybe I'll remind you in the morning. Please do, I chuckled. You know how forgetful I can get when I'm elbow deep in an engine. She laughed lightly, and we continued eating. By 7:30, dinner was done and the kids had scattered. Mia had homework to finish, and Tom was already getting sleepy-eyed, curled up on the couch with his stuffed dinosaur. I stood and began collecting plates. Anna started running water in the sink, but I gently nudged her aside. I got this, Anna. You go relax. It's been a long day for you too. She smiled appreciatively and dried her hands. Thanks, Rob. She only calls me Rob in private moments like this. It still makes me smile. I think I'll go check on Mia's homework and then get Tom into his pajamas. As I washed the dishes, I could hear Anna in the next room gently cajoling Tom to wake up enough to change and go to bed. His sleepy protests made me grin. Moments later, she passed by with Tom in her arms, his head on her shoulder, already half asleep. Mia trailed behind, heading to her own room with a wave goodnight to me. I finished up in the kitchen, wiped down the table, and double-checked that everything was set for the morning. When I finally headed to our bedroom, I found Anna already lying in bed with a book in her hands. She often read a few pages before sleep. I quietly changed out of my grease-stained shirt and joined her, the mattress sinking slightly under my weight. You okay? You look tired, I whispered. The bedside lamp cast a soft glow on her face. She closed her book and set it on the nightstand. Just the usual tired. One of the kids in my class threw up all over the art corner today. That was an adventure to clean up. She rolled her eyes a little, then smiled. Sometimes I feel like I clean more than I teach, honestly. I chuckled sympathetically. Occupational hazard of being around 25-year-olds daily, but hey, I'm sure they adore you for it. You're their favorite teacher, right? She gave a modest shrug, but I could see the hint of pride in her eyes. I hope so. I do my best with them. I reached out and took her hand, giving it a light squeeze. And you're a great mom, too. We're lucky to have you, you know. Anna squeezed my hand back, and for a moment she looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. It was soft, but almost sad? Or was it just tiredness? The next second she smiled. I'm lucky, too. Good night, Rob. Good night, Anna. She clicked off the lamp and we settled down to sleep, her back turned to me as she got comfortable. I stared at the ceiling in the darkness for a little while, listening to her breathing even out as she drifted off. Moments like this, quiet nights in our own home, I often take time to be thankful. Thankful for my wife, my kids, and the simple life we've built. Everything is calm, everything is routine, and for now, everything is as it should be. Little do I know, as I write this entry looking back on the day, that these ordinary moments are the calm before a storm I never saw coming. I don't realize it yet, but my world, our world, is about to change in ways I could never imagine. Chapter 2. Unusual Changes. July 15th, 2019. It's been about 6 weeks since I first started this diary, and I haven't written much since that first entry. Perhaps I didn't feel the need. Life was moving along as usual. But in the last couple of weeks, I've noticed some changes in our household, particularly with Anna, and it's been gnawing at me enough that I feel the need to write it out. At first, they were little things. I remember a couple of weeks ago I came home from work and found Anna on her phone, which isn't unusual in itself. She uses her phone like anyone else. But when I walked into the room, she jumped a little as if I startled her, and quickly locked the screen, putting the phone face down on the coffee table. I teased her. Jumpy much? Watching horror movies without me? She gave a quick laugh and said, No, just reading an article about classroom activities. I didn't think much of it at the time, but then similar incidents started happening more often. I'd catch her texting or scrolling through social media more frequently than before. She would tilt the screen away from me or close apps when I came near. One night, I woke up around midnight because I heard a faint noise. I saw a dim light emanating from the hallway. Curious, I quietly got out of bed and peeked out. It was Anna, sitting at the kitchen table in her nightshirt, illuminated by the glow of her phone. She was typing something, her face drawn in concentration. I must have made a floorboard creak because she had glanced over her shoulder suddenly. When she saw me, she nearly dropped the phone. "Oh my God, Rob," she whispered, one hand over her chest. "You scared me. What are you doing up?" "I could ask you the same," I whispered back, rubbing sleep from my eyes. "It's midnight. Is everything okay?" She gave a quick nod, slipping her phone into her robe pocket. Yeah, everything's fine. I just couldn't sleep. Thought maybe some hot milk might help." She gestured at an untouched mug on the table. Indeed, there was a mug of milk there, but it was full and likely cold by now. I walked closer, concern creeping in. "Is something on your mind? You've been restless lately." She avoided my eyes for a moment, then offered a half smile. "Just stressed about work. We have some new staff, and it's been a little hectic training them and adjusting. And the kids at school have been a handful with the summer program. I guess it's keeping me up." I placed my hand gently on her shoulder. "You sure that's all? You know you can talk to me if something's bothering you, right?" Anna leaned into my touch briefly. "I know. I'm okay, really. Go back to bed. I'll be there soon." Reluctantly, I left her to it. But as I laid back down, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Anna and I have had the same routine for years. Usually by 10 p.m., she's exhausted from her day with the kids and asleep before her head hits the pillow. It was unlike her to be up past midnight, and certainly unlike her to be glued to her phone in the dark. In the days that followed, more red flags popped up. Anna started to mention work in only vague terms, or not at all. When I'd ask how her day went or how the summer program at Little Oaks was going, she'd respond with generic phrases like, "Oh, same old busy day," and quickly change the subject to something about the kids or a random errand she needed to run. It struck me that she was actually avoiding talking about work, which was odd because she usually liked to share funny stories about the children or little frustrations about her coworkers. Speaking of errands, that was another thing. Anna began to step out of the house more often outside of work hours. It started with her saying she needed to go shopping for groceries or supplies for her classroom. But then she'd be gone longer than expected. 2 Saturdays ago, she said she was going to the shopping center, one town over, to buy new art supplies for an upcoming project at the preschool. Normally, a round trip like that, including shopping time, might take maybe 2 hours. She was gone for almost 4. When she got back, I noticed she had only a small bag with a few items. Her explanation? The store was out of a lot of what I needed, so I had to look around for other things and ended up browsing. She also mentioned bumping into an old college friend at the store, which, she claimed, turned into an impromptu coffee catch-up. At the time, I remember feeling a small prickle of skepticism. Anna isn't a great liar. Her cheeks flush pink when she fibs, even about silly things. That afternoon, I saw a hint of that flush, but I pushed the thought away. It felt almost wrong to doubt her. In a decade of marriage, I'd never had reason to suspect anything was wrong between us. We trusted each other. Or at least, I thought we did. Then there was the matter of her appearance. One day last week, a weekday, she left for work looking more dressed up than usual. Nothing dramatic, but I noticed she wore a nicer dress than her typical polo and slacks combo she usually reserves for dealing with finger paint and playground dust. She even put on a touch of makeup before heading out, which she rarely does for work at the preschool. I whistled teasingly and said, "Someone's looking fancy today. The little kiddos are going to be impressed." She laughed it off and said, "Sometimes it's nice to feel a little pretty, even if the audience is a bunch of 5-year-olds. I didn't press further, but it lingered with me. Why that day of all days did she want to feel a little pretty? She hadn't mentioned any special event at the preschool. That evening when she got home, she was distracted, almost distant. At dinner, she barely touched her food and let me handle most of the conversation with Mia and Tom. She smiled when appropriate, nodded along to the kids' stories, but I could tell her mind was elsewhere. Twice I had to repeat a question to her. Once about whether she mailed the electricity bill. She had not, and rushed to assure me she'd do it the next day. and another time when I asked if her friend from work, Sarah, was still planning that end-of-summer BBQ. Anna just blinked at me as if she'd heard only half of what I said. After the kids were asleep that night, I gently confronted her. We were folding laundry together in the living room, TV murmuring in the background. Anna, I started, keeping my tone light, you've seemed a little preoccupied lately. Is everything all right? You said work was hectic with the new staff. Anything more going on? She didn't meet my eyes, focusing intently on matching a pair of socks. I'm just a little overwhelmed, I guess. New staff means new routines, and I'm trying to make sure everything stays on track. I'm sorry if I've been distant. I reached over and touched her arm. I get it if you're stressed, but, we're a team. You can lean on me. If you need help with anything or just someone to talk to, I'm here, okay? For a moment, her lip trembled, and I thought she was about to really open up. My heart even ached, thinking she might say she was burned out or unhappy with something that I could fix. But instead, she just leaned over and gave me a quick, tight hug. Thank you, Rob. I appreciate it. But I promise I'm okay. Maybe I just need a little rest or a day off or something. Take one, I said immediately. Call in sick if you need to. You have days saved up, don't you? Spend a day at home, relax. I can take the kids in the morning and drop them off, and you can just have some you time. She pulled back from the hug and gave me a grateful smile. You're sweet. Maybe I will soon, yeah. But she never did take that day off. In fact, the subtle, odd behavior continued. A few times that week, she came home later than her usual 4 p.m. from the preschool. On those days, she had ready-made excuses. A staff meeting ran late, or she stopped by the pharmacy to pick up vitamins for the kids. They all sounded plausible, yet something still felt off in my gut. It was the phone usage that really started to plant the seeds of fear in me. One night, as we sat on the couch after putting the kids to bed, we were watching a show together. Well, I was watching. She was half listening, half scrolling through her phone. I caught a glimpse of her screen reflection in her glasses. She was on Facebook Messenger, typing something. I could see the little message bubble shapes. At one point, she set her phone down to get up and use the bathroom. She left it on the couch next to me. I glanced at it. The screen was dark, but my heart was suddenly hammering. I had the irrational urge to pick it up and see what or who she'd been writing to, but that felt like a gross invasion of privacy. We trusted each other, I reminded myself. Still, I gently pressed the home button just to see the lock screen. It lit up and asked for her passcode. The wallpaper was a picture of us as a family at the lake last summer. All seemed normal, and yet my hand shook slightly as I set the phone back down, untouched. When she came back, she actually seemed a little startled to see her phone right by me. She picked it up quickly and gave me an odd look, almost wary. Everything okay? She asked. I pretended to yawn, covering any tension with nonchalance. Yeah, just getting sleepy. You mind if we finish this episode tomorrow? She relaxed, or at least I think she did, and said, Sure, I'm getting tired too. That night I lay in bed with a storm of insecurities and worries swirling in my mind. I couldn't pinpoint exactly why I was feeling this way. After all, none of these things by themselves prove anything is wrong. People get stressed at work. People become a bit more private when they need space, and sometimes a spouse just needs some new social interactions or hobbies. I tried to tell myself I was being paranoid, that maybe Anna was planning a surprise for me. Maybe an anniversary gift or a special family trip. Something that would explain secretive texting and odd outings. Our 10th anniversary was coming up in August after all. That thought actually calmed me for a bit. Perhaps she was secretly arranging something for that and didn't want me to find out. I almost chided myself for being suspicious of my wife. Have 10 years together not earned at least that level of trust? I promised myself I'd be supportive and patient. The last thing I wanted was to accuse her of something when I had no real evidence of anything. But the uneasy feeling didn't go away. In fact, it grew day by day, a quiet dread that something precious was slipping through my fingers. I pray that I'm wrong. I pray that this is just a phase or a misunderstanding. Because the alternative, the mere thought that Anna might be hiding something truly hurtful, is more than I can bear to consider. Chapter 3. Unexpected Encounter, August 3rd, 2019. I spent the last couple of weeks trying to dismiss my suspicions and restore some normalcy. I focused on the garage, on the kids, and gave Anna her space, hoping things would smooth out. She did seem to relax a little, or maybe she just got better at hiding what was on her mind. But I could still sense a distance between us that hadn't been there before. Earlier this week, Anna mentioned that today, Friday, she'd have a staff meeting after school and that she might be home late. She arranged for her coworker Sarah to drop off Tom at my mother's house after preschool, since the meeting would run past 4 p.m. when the preschool closes. It struck me as a bit odd. Usually any meetings they have don't go too late, and Anna would just keep Tom with her until I could pick him up. But she insisted it was a formal training session and that children weren't allowed. So Sarah kindly offered to drive Tom to his grandma's. I accepted this explanation without comment, even as my stomach fluttered with anxiety. All day at work I was on edge. I made a mistake on a simple oil change because my mind was elsewhere thinking about Anna. By 4:30 I couldn't take it anymore. I told my assistant manager, Joe, that I needed to step out early due to a family errand. With the shop in capable hands, I left around 4:45, intent on picking up Tom from my mom's and maybe swinging by the school to see if Anna was still there. It was a warm August afternoon, the kind where the sun hangs golden and heavy in the sky. As I drove through town, windows down, I tried to convince myself I was being foolish. If Anna said she had a meeting, she probably did. She'd done nothing concrete to break my trust yet. Still, an uneasy instinct urged me onward. Little Oaks Preschool is adjacent to a public park, a small grassy area with a playground and a few picnic tables under oak trees, hence the school's name. I decided to drive by the park on my way, thinking maybe I'd catch a glimpse of the school parking lot from there to see if the teachers' cars were still around. When I turned down the park lane, I spotted the familiar shape of our silver Honda Civic almost immediately. It was parked not in the school lot but along the curb by the park, under the shade of a large oak. That was strange. If she was at a meeting, why would her car be here by the park? There were a few other vehicles around, and at first I thought maybe she parked here because the lot was full due to the meeting. I pulled my truck over at a distance, behind a row of hedges that separated part of the park from the road. My heart was thudding in my chest as I killed the engine. From where I sat, I could see our Honda about 50 yards away. The late afternoon sunlight filtered through the trees, casting dappled shadows over the cars. I squinted, trying to see if Anna was inside. Then I saw her. Through the windshield, I recognized Anna in the driver's seat of our car. She wasn't alone. In the passenger seat, there was a man. At that distance, I couldn't make out details of the man's face, but I saw enough. He looked to be around my age, maybe a bit younger, with short, sandy blonde hair. He was turned toward Anna, and they appeared to be talking. My stomach dropped as I saw Anna tilt her head back and laugh at something he said. It was the kind of laugh and the kind of smile on her face that I hadn't seen in a while. She looked happy, completely at ease in a way she hadn't at home lately. I sank down in my seat instinctively, afraid they might see me even though I was fairly far away and partially concealed. My hands gripped the steering wheel tightly as I watched. They talked for a minute or two. I saw the man reach out and gently brush a strand of hair from Anna's face. It was an intimate gesture. She didn't pull away. In fact, she leaned slightly toward him. No, this can't be happening, I thought, a cold sweat breaking out on my forehead. I felt like I was in a bad dream, frozen and helpless, only able to watch the horror unfold. Then the man said something again, and Anna nodded. I saw her smile softly, a smile full of warmth and affection, a smile she used to give me. Before I could process that, the man leaned in across the console, and Anna leaned towards him. They kissed. Even from the distance, there was no mistaking it. I saw their faces meet, holding together for what felt to me like an eternity. My mind went blank. A roaring filled my ears as blood pounded through my head. I felt like someone had punched me in the gut. I literally lost my breath for a moment. My wife was kissing another man. I must have made some involuntary noise, a sharp gasp or a groan, though there was no one around to hear me. My vision blurred with sudden tears, and I almost lost sight of them for a second. I forced myself to blink, clearing the hot wetness from my eyes. They were still at it, a tender, slow kiss that spoke of familiarity and comfort. This wasn't some chaste peck between friends or a spur-of-the-moment mistake. This looked like two people who had done this before, who knew each other intimately. My hands trembled uncontrollably on the wheel, I felt a wave of nausea and thought I might actually throw up right there. Every instinct in me screamed to jump out of the truck, to storm over, yank that car door open and demand answers, or to smash that guy's face in. I could feel my heart hammering with adrenaline and betrayal, an almost irresistible urge to confront them, to shout, to cry, to do something. But I didn't. Some sliver of restraint held me back. Perhaps it was shock freezing me in place, or a survival instinct telling me that if I barged over in rage, I'd never be able to undo whatever came next. I was shaking like a leaf. My mind raced through 1,000 images. Anna and me on our wedding day, the births of our children, the quiet evenings on the couch, the laughter, the struggles, all of it. And now this stranger injecting himself into our story, rewriting our life with one act of betrayal. Eventually, they separated from the kiss. The man brushed his thumb lightly across Anna's cheek as she looked at him with a tender expression that made my chest ache. She said something. He nodded. It looked like they were wrapping up their meeting. I realized if I didn't move, they might see me when they drove off. My heart still in my throat, I sank lower in my seat and reached into my pocket with clammy fingers to retrieve my phone. With as much steadiness as I could muster, I opened the camera and zoomed in toward my car. Through the foliage, the view was partially obscured, but I had a clear line at them through the windshield. They were talking again, eyes on each other. I snapped a photo. The shutter sound was muted, thankfully. Then I switched to video and hit record, hoping to capture any damning evidence I could. The phone camera trembled in my hands. I steadied it against the dash. I caught a snippet of their conversation, though I couldn't hear from that distance, of course. Their faces, though, that told enough. Anna was gazing at him with an affection I knew well, and he was reaching over to hold her hand now. I felt something inside me break at the sight, but I forced myself to keep filming for another few seconds. Then I saw them move, as if preparing to say goodbye. They leaned in for one more kiss, shorter this time, more of a gentle peck on the lips. It was still enough to make me feel like I was dying inside. After that final kiss, the man opened the door and stepped out of our car. He was tall, athletic-looking, dressed in a polo shirt and jeans. He walked around the front of the car, and for a terrifying moment I thought he might glance in my direction. I ducked down as low as I could behind my steering wheel. Peering just over the edge of the dash, I watched him get into a different car, a red Ford sedan that was parked just ahead of the Honda. I hadn't even noticed that car before. He must have been in it waiting for her earlier. The man started his car and pulled away from the curb slowly. As he passed near me, thankfully not looking my way, I caught a glimpse of his face clearly for the first time. Strong jaw, youthful, maybe early 30s, a neatly trimmed beard. He looked casual, like this was just another Friday for him. I instinctively noted part of his license plate as the car went by. It started with CZX, Michigan plates. He headed off down the road, leaving the park behind. Meanwhile, Anna remained in our car for a moment, hands on the steering wheel, not moving. From my vantage, I could see her expression had changed. She looked pensive, maybe even sad. She touched her lips with her fingers, a small, lingering gesture from their kiss. Then she closed her eyes and took what looked like a deep breath. When she opened them, I saw her take her phone, which had been on the dashboard, and start tapping out a message, probably telling him something, or maybe messaging me that she was on her way home soon. I don't know. My phone remained in my hand, still recording, catching her sitting alone now. I realized I had all the evidence I feared I would find. My wife was cheating on me. I ended the recording and slowly sank back in the driver's seat of my truck out of sight. My entire body felt numb. I don't know how long I sat there after her car eventually pulled away. I didn't follow her. I couldn't. I was afraid if I drove behind her, I'd just end up tailing her home and confronting her in a rage, and a part of me wasn't ready for that confrontation. Another part of me felt shattered and wanted to curl up and scream or cry or both. My phone buzzed in my hand, jolting me. Ironically, it was a text from Anna. Meeting ran a bit late, heading to pick up Tom now. See you at home soon. Love you. Love you. The words on the screen blurred as fresh tears filled my eyes. I threw my phone onto the passenger seat, a surge of anger flaring through the despair. How could she? How could she do this to us, to our family? I had to pull myself together. Tom was waiting at my mom's place for me. Taking a deep, shuddering breath, I started the engine and carefully pulled out from behind the hedges. My mind was racing with a million questions and agonies, but I forced them down. Tom couldn't see me like this, and certainly neither could my mother. I practiced a neutral expression in the rearview mirror, but my eyes were red and my face pale. I looked sick. On the short drive to Mom's, I blasted the AC to cool off and pinched my cheeks to get some color back. I tried thinking of an excuse for my appearance if Mom noticed something. Maybe say I had a headache, or it was just the heat. When I arrived, Mom was on the porch with Tom, who was playing with an action figure. She waved as I pulled in. I quickly wiped my face one more time. "Hey, Ma," I greeted, stepping out of the truck with what I hoped was a normal smile. "Hi, sweetheart," Mom said, peering at me. "You look tired. Long day at work?" "Yeah, pretty long," I lied smoothly, bending down to scoop up Tom. "Thanks for watching this little guy for us." "No trouble at all. We had a great time, didn't we, Tom?" She smiled, ruffling his hair. Tom nodded enthusiastically. "Grandma gave me ice cream," he announced. I mustered a chuckle. "Lucky boy. Come on, let's get you home." I buckled Tom into the back seat, and Mom handed me his backpack. Her eyes lingered on me a second. "You sure everything's all right, Robbie? You seem quiet." I realized I hadn't fooled her entirely. I gave her a reassuring pat on the hand. "I'm okay, Mom. Just a headache from the heat, I think. Gonna go home and rest up." She nodded, though concern still pinched her brow. "Tell Anna I said hello. And you take some aspirin, okay?" "Will do. Thanks again." I kissed her cheek and got in the truck. As we drove home, Tom babbled happily in the back seat about his time with Grandma and described in detail the cartoon he watched. I responded when I needed to, but my mind was elsewhere, replaying what I had witnessed in an agonizing loop. By the time I pulled into our driveway, I saw Anna's car already there. My stomach clenched. I wasn't ready to face her, but I had to. For Tom's sake, I steeled myself. I grabbed his backpack, helped him out of the truck, and we went inside. Anna was in the kitchen, acting as if everything was perfectly normal. She turned and greeted Tom with a bright smile, swooping down to hug him. Then she looked up at me. If she felt any guilt or fear of being caught, she masked it expertly. She walked over and gave me a light peck on the lips, as if nothing had happened, as if those same lips hadn't been on someone else's just an hour ago. "How was your day, hun?" she asked, maybe a touch nervously, though her tone was casual. I forced myself to smile and looked away, pretending to focus on sorting through Tom's backpack. "Same old, tiring. How was yours? How was the, meeting?" She turned back to the counter where I noticed she was preparing a simple dinner, sandwiches and soup. "It was okay. Boring, mostly. I'm just glad it's over." I could feel my hands trembling slightly as I rifled through the backpack for nothing in particular. I mumbled, "Glad to have you home." My voice must have been strained because she glanced at me again. For a second, I was afraid she could see right through me, see the devastation and anger I was hiding. But she only offered a gentle smile. "Glad to be home," she said, coming over and rubbing my arm affectionately. I flinched just barely at her touch, images of that other man flooding my mind, but I quickly covered it by turning it into a motion of moving to put the backpack down. She didn't seem to notice. That evening was one of the hardest acts of my life, pretending everything was all right. I sat at the table, ate the food she made, listened to my children chatter, and even nodded along to bits of conversation with Anna, all on autopilot. Inside, I was dying. Part of me wanted to scream at her. "How could you do this?" Part of me wanted to break down and cry. Another part just felt cold and hollow. Once the kids were in bed, I half expected Anna to bring up that something was wrong with me, ask if I was okay. I must have seemed quieter than usual. But perhaps she was too preoccupied, or too relieved that I hadn't suspected anything to notice my demeanor. I told her I was really tired and had a headache, reusing the excuse I gave Mom, and was going to bed early. She seemed to accept that without question. She stayed up a little later that night, and I heard her chatting softly on the phone in the living room after I went to bed. I couldn't make out what she was saying, but I didn't need to guess who it might have been. That realization twisted the knife even deeper. I lay in the dark in the same bed as my wife, the woman I loved more than anything, knowing she had been with someone else and was likely still thinking about him. Silent tears slid down my face onto the pillow. I made sure not to sniffle or make a sound. I didn't want her coming in and asking what was wrong. I couldn't speak to her. Not tonight. Tonight I knew the truth, and nothing would ever be the same again. Chapter 4. A Thorough Investigation. August 5th, 2019. The morning after I saw my wife with that man, I woke up feeling like I was in someone else's life. For a moment, in that blurry space between sleep and waking, I forgot what had happened. I reached across the bed expecting to find Anna, but her side was empty. Just the crumpled sheets and the faint scent of her shampoo on the pillow. She was already up, likely getting ready for work and preparing the kids' breakfast. And then, with a sickening lurch in my stomach, I remembered. The park, the kiss, the betrayal. I had barely slept a wink. My eyes felt sandy and my head throbbed. I lay there staring at the ceiling, a whirlwind of emotions tearing through me. Pain, anger, confusion, humiliation, grief. But beneath all of it was a growing determination. I needed answers. Who was that man exactly? How long had this been going on? And why? A part of me wanted to march downstairs and confront Anna right then and there. Demand she tell me everything, scream, cry, anything to release the torment inside me. But another part, a surprisingly rational voice amid the chaos, told me to wait. I had only seen them, not spoken to them. If I confronted her with just what I saw, she might lie or downplay it or simply deny everything. If I was going to truly understand and ensure justice for this betrayal, I needed proof and information. I got up and splashed cold water on my face in the bathroom. In the mirror, I barely recognized myself. Eyes bloodshot, face drawn. I took a few deep breaths. Not now, I told myself. I had to get through this morning, get the kids to where they need to be, and act normal. Then I could figure out my next steps. When I went downstairs, I found the usual hustle and bustle. Tom was at the kitchen table, swinging his legs and munching cereal while coloring on a paper placemat. Mia was trying to tie her shoelaces by the door, her backpack already on. Anna stood by the stove, frying an egg. The smell of coffee permeated the air. It was a snapshot of any ordinary morning in our home, except nothing felt ordinary to me. "Morning," I forced out, my voice hoarse. "Morning, Dad," chirped Tom through a mouthful of cereal. "Hi, Daddy," Mia added, concentrating on her laces. Anna turned and gave me a fleeting smile. "Good morning. You slept okay? You looked like you fell asleep the second your head hit the pillow last night." I realized she had no clue I'd been awake most of the night. In the dark, I must have appeared asleep. "Yeah," I lied quietly. I was pretty beat. I moved to pour myself coffee, mostly to avoid looking directly at her and betraying my emotions. She was dressed in her work attire, today's choice being a modest floral-patterned dress under a light cardigan, suitable for wrangling kids. I wondered if she dressed a little nicer today because she expected to see him. The thought was like a knife twist. "You sure you're feeling okay?" she asked, eyeing me. "You still look a bit pale." I sipped the hot coffee, hoping it would jolt me into focus. "I'm fine, just not fully awake yet," I said. "What time do you need to head out?" "Soon," she replied, turning off the stove and sliding the fried egg onto a piece of toast. She made a quick sandwich and wrapped it in a napkin, probably to eat on the go. I have to be in a bit early to prep for an activity. I glanced at the clock. It was only 7:15. She normally didn't leave until 7:45 or 8. Early to prep or early to meet him? I bit down on my tongue and nodded. "No problem. I'll take care of getting these two to school." She looked relieved. "Thanks, hun. I appreciate it." She came over and in a habitual gesture stood on her toes to give me a peck on the cheek. I stiffened just slightly. Her lips on my skin felt wrong now, tainted. But I tried to appear natural. She paused, perhaps sensing something, and for a second I thought an expression of concern flickered in her eyes. I braced myself for her to ask if I was really all right. But then Mia groaned dramatically from the door. "Ugh, these laces! Daddy, can you help me? They keep tangling." I exhaled silently, grateful for the interruption. "Sure, Peanut. Be right there." Anna grabbed her purse and keys. She gave Tom a little kiss on the top of his head. "Bye, sweetheart. Mommy will see you later, okay?" "Bye, Mommy," Tom chirped, milk dribbling down his chin. She then walked to Mia and I at the door. I had just finished tying Mia's shoelaces snugly. Anna stroked Mia's hair. "Bye, Mia Bean. Be good at school, and good luck on your math test today." Mia nodded and hugged her. "Bye, Mom." Anna looked at me one more time. That concern in her eyes was there again. Maybe I imagined it. She opened her mouth as if to say something, but then seemed to think better of it. Instead, she simply said, "See you tonight, Rob. Love you." "Love you too," I managed. The words felt bitter on my tongue, and with that, she walked out. I closed the door behind her and locked it. Through the window, I watched her get into her car and drive off down the street. My hands balled into fists at my sides, and I took a long moment to steady myself. The kids needed to get to school, and I needed to get to work. Routine. Keep the routine, I told myself. Don't fall apart in front of them. I got Mia on the elementary school bus at 7:45. Then I dropped Tom off at Little Oaks by 8, where another teacher greeted him since Anna's class wouldn't start until a bit later. I didn't see Anna there. She must have been in a staff area, or perhaps she truly had been prepping something. I left quickly, not wanting to run into her in that moment. Once both kids were safe at school, I parked my truck around the corner and just sat there, engine idling. I felt like I was standing at a crossroads. The old me, the trusting husband with a normal life, was standing on one path that was quickly eroding behind him. The other path, the one of uncovering ugly truths and dealing with them, lay ahead, and I knew I had to walk it. I picked up my phone and looked at the photos and short video I'd taken 2 days ago at the park. Watching it again felt like plunging a knife into my own heart, but I forced myself to do it. There they were, clear as day, Anna and that man kissing in our car. The video, though a bit shaky, clearly showed Anna's face as she leaned toward him and his profile as well. Anyone who knows them would recognize who it is. Evidence. I realized I needed to identify the man. I had some clues already. He was new in town and had been in the park right by the preschool. Given that Anna mentioned new staff and that she met him adjacent to work, it clicked together. He must be one of the new hires at Little Oaks. Possibly the new coach she vaguely referred to. I recalled something that sent a chill through me. A couple of weeks back, Tom had come home excited talking about a Coach Ben, who taught them a fun new game in the gym. It stood out because Tom usually only ever talked about his regular teacher and his friends. I remembered him saying something like, "Coach Ben showed me how to throw a ball like a big kid." At dinner one night. At the time, Anna and I had shared a smile at his enthusiasm. That memory now took on a different light. Ben? Could that be him? A new coach would be exactly the kind of new staff at the preschool that she mentioned. I decided to confirm my hunch. Pulling up the browser on my phone, I went to Facebook and searched the name Ben, along with the name of our town and possibly the preschool. It took a little scrolling, but soon enough I found a profile. Ben Carter. The profile picture was of the same sandy-haired man I'd seen with Anna, wearing sunglasses and smiling at a beach. My jaw tightened. The profile listed his current city as our town and his workplace as Little Oaks Preschool. Physical education instructor at Little Oaks Preschool. Got him. I clicked on his profile, but a lot of it was private. I could see a few public profile pictures and basic info. One piece of information stood out immediately. His relationship status. It said, "Married to Rebecca Carter," and a little heart icon. I tapped that and it brought me to a profile of a woman named Rebecca Carter. Her profile was also mostly private, but her profile picture showed a cheerful-looking brunette about Anna's age, with 2 small children hugging her. The caption read, "New town, new adventures. Michigan, family." And it was dated just 2 months ago. I felt a strange mix of relief and further anger. Relief that this man was not some unattached fling. He had a family too, meaning he was risking a lot. And anger that he was willing to burn his own wife and kids as well as mine for this affair. So he was married, with kids. Possibly those kids even go to the preschool or somewhere nearby? Maybe not. They looked a bit younger than school age in the picture. But I couldn't be sure. Perhaps they were toddlers. I took screenshots of Ben's profile page and Rebecca's profile picture for reference. I also wrote down the name Rebecca Carter in my phone's notes with a reminder to find a way to contact her soon. I didn't know her, but in our small town, finding contact info might not be too hard. Perhaps she was also on the preschool's parent list if their kids were enrolled there, or perhaps they were too young for school. If needed, I could message her through Facebook, though that felt delicate. I would have to plan that carefully. For now, I had two key identities: Ben, the lover, and Rebecca, his wife. The next step was gathering more direct evidence of the affair beyond the one encounter I'd witnessed. I needed to know if this was ongoing, and if so, how long it had been happening under my nose. I didn't want to involve anyone else yet, not until I had a clearer picture, but perhaps I could subtly get some information from someone at the preschool. Maybe Sarah, the coworker who had been mentioned. She and Anna were friendly, but not best friends. If anyone had noticed odd behavior, it might be someone like her or others on staff. I considered going into work late and hanging around the preschool or talking to someone. However, standing around in a suspicious manner might raise flags, and I wasn't exactly in the right frame of mind for casual chit-chat. Instead, I opted for a different approach, accessing Anna's own communications. It felt dirty and invasive to spy on my wife's private messages, but she had forfeited my respect for her privacy when she decided to cheat. I had to know what I was dealing with. I went home and tried to think of how to get into her accounts. Her laptop was in our bedroom. She typically used it for browsing and maybe some school-related work. Sometimes she kept her social media logged in there. I slipped into the house, having told my lead mechanic I'd be late due to an errand. The quiet of the house in the morning felt heavy and eerie. I went upstairs to our bedroom and found her laptop on her vanity table. Opening it up, I saw it was on sleep mode. I lifted the lid and the screen came to life. It was not locked. Apparently, she didn't expect any intrusion, or maybe had set it to convenience mode. The desktop was displayed with a cheerful wallpaper of a beach, from a family vacation long ago. I clicked open the internet browser and checked if any social media were logged in. Sure enough, her Facebook was open. She must have last used it here and just closed the browser without logging out. My heart pounded as I navigated to her messages. There it was, a message thread with a Ben Carter. The recent messages were right there. Her last message from last night read, "Miss you already. Talking to you later was just what I needed. Sweet dreams, Ben." His reply, timestamped very late at night, around midnight, said, "I miss you too. Can't wait for tomorrow. Sleep well, beautiful." I felt a surge of nausea reading their words. I scrolled up slightly, my hand shaking on the touchpad. The thread was long. They had been messaging on Facebook Messenger frequently, often multiple times a day. I didn't have time to read it all right then, so I quickly clicked the option to download chat history, if available, or copy text. That wasn't straightforward via the interface, so instead, I took out my phone and started snapping pictures of the screen, scrolling slowly to capture as much of the conversation as possible. Snippets jumped out at me in those messages. Asterisk. About a week ago, Anna wrote, "Today was so hard. I hate lying to him." And Ben responded, "I know, but it's only until we figure things out. You okay? I worry about you." Asterisk Ben at some point wrote, "Seeing you in class today and not being able to kiss you was torture." To which Anna replied, "Tell me about it. Can't wait for Friday." Friday. That must have been the meeting at the park I witnessed. Asterisk. Another message from Anna. "I wish we could have more than stolen moments. Maybe soon we should tell them. I don't know if I can keep this secret forever." My breath caught at that. Tell them? As in tell me and Rebecca? Were they planning to come clean eventually? Or was that just a fleeting guilt trip? Asterisk Ben. Not yet. It's too risky with my job and the kids. Let's not rush, okay? I don't want to lose you. Or them. It felt like my heart was being ripped apart and set on fire with each line I read. She was discussing a future with this man. This wasn't a meaningless fling. It was emotional, possibly planning to become something more permanent. The idea that she had considered leaving me, destroying our family for him, made my hands curl into fists. I took photo after photo of the screen, capturing enough evidence to fill a small album. There were declarations of love, discussions of meetings. The park meetup was arranged 2 days in advance, it turned out. They planned to meet after the training session, which clearly was a cover story. They mentioned another encounter, an afternoon when she went shopping for art supplies. That must have been one of those Saturdays she disappeared for hours. The messages suggested she met him at a motel out of town that day. I nearly hurled the coffee I drank earlier as I realized that tryst had already happened weeks ago. God, how long has this been going on? I scrolled all the way to the top of their conversation history to find the earliest messages. The first exchange dated back about 3 months around May. It started innocently enough, him sending a group message to staff about a softball game for kids, her responding individually, then personal chat gradually warming. By June, it had turned flirty. By July, outright romantic. And by late July, it was clearly physical as they referenced the first time they kissed, which seemed to have happened in mid-July after some staff gathering one evening. 3 months. For 3 months, my wife had been living a double life while I was blissfully ignorant. I had seen enough, more than enough. I closed the browser and gently shut her laptop, placing it exactly as it was. My hands were shaking and cold. I felt tears of a mixture of rage and sorrow threatening to spill again, but I clenched my jaw and held them back. I had to keep it together. I now possessed asterisk photos and video of them together. Asterisk. Copies of their private messages, which spelled out the affair in painful detail. Asterisk. The identity of the man, Ben, and knowledge of his wife, Rebecca. It was a trove of evidence that left no room for denials. I called into work and told Joe that I had a family emergency and needed the day off. My voice must have sounded off because Joe, an old friend as well as employee, asked if I was all right. I just told him I wasn't sure, but I'd fill him in later. He wished me well and told me not to worry about the shop. I hung up and sat in my empty house at the edge of my bed, trying to process what to do next. Anger swirled inside me at the betrayal and deceit, but I knew I had to move carefully. Bursting in anger could backfire. I thought about the kids, Mia and Tom. They didn't deserve a front row seat to a screaming match or domestic blow-up. And if this blew up wrong, I risked losing custody or hurting them emotionally more than necessary. No, I needed to be strategic. The rational voice in my head was louder now. I needed a plan to ensure that Anna and Ben faced consequences for what they'd done, not just to me, but to our families. I also wanted to protect my children's future. One thing was clear. I would not let them get away with this quietly. They had made a fool of me, and they endangered both our families. They carried on at a workplace around young children, lying to their spouses and colleagues. There had to be fallout, and they would have to face it. As I thought it through, an idea formed. If I revealed this affair publicly at the right time and place, the damage to their reputations could be irreversible. Part of me recoiled at the idea of making something so private into a spectacle. But another part, the part deeply wounded and craving justice, found a grim satisfaction in it. They had been flaunting their affair in secret. Maybe it was time to rip the secrecy away and see how they fared under the harsh light of truth. I knew that the preschool often held parent meetings or events. In fact, with the new school year on the horizon, the preschool also followed the school calendar, starting in late August or early September for the full program. There was likely an upcoming orientation or parent meeting. If I could time things to confront them there, in front of the other staff and parents, it would be a scandal neither of them could escape. But to do that, I needed to be certain of when and ensure I had everything lined up. I decided I would first reach out to Ben's wife, Rebecca. She deserved to know what her husband was doing behind her back. And she could be an ally in this, or at least another party who might confront Ben and not let him slither away from responsibility. Perhaps she even had suspicions of her own. However, I had to approach her carefully. Dropping a bombshell like this on a stranger required tact. Remembering the photo of her with kids and the hashtag #MichiganHashFamily, I deduced they likely moved from out of state or at least from far enough to feel like a new adventure. There might be a phone listing or something, but that could be tricky. Suddenly, I recalled the parent directory from Little Oaks. Because Tom was enrolled, we had a directory of parent contacts for playdates and emergencies, but that might not include staff unless their kids also attended. If Ben's children were attending the preschool, maybe in the younger toddler program if any, his wife's contact might be listed. Alternatively, if his kids were babies, maybe not. Another idea. Sometimes local community pages have postings, or I could ask someone like Sarah for Rebecca's info under a pretext like wanting to welcome the new teacher's family to town. That might be a stretch. The simplest way might be to just send her a message on Facebook and hope she sees it, or even friend, request her to get her attention. I decided to compose a careful message to Rebecca but not send it yet. I wanted to double-check what to say so she wouldn't dismiss it as a prank or something. On my laptop, I began drafting. Hello, Rebecca. You don't know me personally, but I'm Robert Thompson. My son Tom is in Little Oaks preschool. I'm reaching out about something important regarding your husband Ben. I have some information that I think you would want to know. No, that sounded too vague and perhaps creepy. I needed to be more direct but also considerate. Maybe I should just rip the Band-Aid off with evidence. Perhaps better. Rebecca, I'm so sorry to bring this to you, but I believe your husband Ben is having an affair with my wife, Anna, who works with him at Little Oaks. I have evidence, photos and messages, and thought you should know. If you are willing, I can share them with you. I know this is painful, and I'm sorry. That was brutally direct, but perhaps the only way. I saved that draft to refine later, and it was nearing midday by the time I finished gathering my thoughts and evidence. My phone showed a missed text from Anna. How's your day? Everything all right? Haven't heard from you this morning. I ignored it for now. I needed to stay focused. Besides, any reply I gave in my current state might come off wrong. That evening, I would have to pretend again. But at least now, I didn't feel as helpless. I had knowledge and a plan forming. The pain was still there, raw and gnawing. But now it was alloyed with a steely resolve. I was going to get through today, and then the next. I was going to coordinate with Rebecca, gather final proof if necessary, and then deliver the reckoning that Anna and Ben so richly deserved. For the sake of my children and my own self-respect, I would see this through carefully, calmly, and without mercy for the lies that had been spun. They thought they were being clever and careful. They thought we would never find out. They were wrong. Chapter 5. A Cold-Blooded Plan. August 12, 2019. Over the next several days, I moved with a singular purpose, even as I maintained a facade of normalcy at home. It was as if I had split into two people. Outwardly, I was the same Robert, maybe a bit quieter than usual, but plausibly due to work stress or fatigue. Inwardly, I was systematically preparing the downfall of my wife's deceit and her lover's duplicity. After gathering all the evidence, my first actionable step was reaching out to Ben's wife, Rebecca. The day after I copied the messages from Anna's laptop, I finalized the message I wanted to send her. It was concise and direct, including one of the less graphic photos of the park kiss as proof. With a deep breath and a trembling finger, I hit send on that Facebook message. Then I waited. The wait was agonizing. 1,000 scenarios ran through my mind. What if she didn't see it? What if she ignored it as spam? What if she told Ben about it immediately and tipped him off? Every time my phone buzzed, my heart jumped. It was late evening when I saw a Facebook notification. Message request accepted. Then a new message from Rebecca popped up. I saw your message. I don't understand. Please, who are you? Is this some kind of joke? My hands were clammy as I responded, giving her my phone number and assuring her I was very real and that I had more evidence. I suggested that it might be better to talk in person, if she was comfortable, because I understood how unbelievable and painful this was. I offered to meet at a discreet location of her choosing, even if just to show her I'm genuine. She called me instead. A video call request came through moments later, catching me off guard. I hurriedly accepted. I think she wanted to see my face to gauge honesty. Suddenly, there she was on my phone screen, the woman from the profile picture, Rebecca. Her eyes were red and puffy as if she'd been crying, and she looked terrified and confused. I switched the camera to show myself. I must have looked troubled too. Rebecca? I asked softly. She nodded, wiping her nose. You're Robert? Yes, I answered. I'm sorry to reach out like this. I wish I didn't have to. Her voice trembled as she said, Please, just tell me what's going on. You said Ben and your wife? Anna, right? They're having an affair? Why do you think that? It was clear she was hoping there was some mistake. Gently, I explained. I told her about the signs I noticed, about seeing them together at the park. I showed her briefly on the video call the photos I had taken. I could see the moment her heart broke by the way she gasped and covered her mouth, tears spilling anew. Then I mentioned the messages. She asked if she could see them. I have screenshots, I said. There's a lot. Are you sure? She nodded, steeling herself. So I sent several of the screenshots through the chat for her to read. I watched her face as she read through them silently. It was devastating. She looked like someone who'd been told the world was ending. After a minute, she inhaled sharply. I suspected something was off, she admitted in a small voice. He'd been so busy with work and distant, but I never imagined. She trailed off, shaking her head. I'm sorry, I said sincerely. I know how horrible this feels. I found out a few days ago. I wouldn't wish this on anyone. Tears glistened in her eyes. We moved here 2 months ago for his job. I left my friends, my job, everything to support him here. Our kids. Her voice cracked. My heart ached for her. How old are your kids? I asked gently. 3 and 1, she managed. 2 little girls. Thank God they're too young to understand any of this right now. I nodded. At least my own children were a bit older, but that came with its own complications since they might sense the family changes more acutely. Rebecca wiped her eyes and straightened a bit, a flash of anger replacing some of the sorrow. That bastard, she muttered. And your wife? God, I'm sorry, I know she's your wife, but how could they do this? At a school, no less. I shared in her anger. They betrayed both of us, and no, you don't have to apologize. I'm as angry at Anna as you are at Ben, if not more. We sat in silence for a moment on that call, 2 strangers connected by mutual pain. Finally, she asked, What do we do now? Why did you contact me first? Are you planning to confront them? I took a breath. I have a plan, but I didn't want to execute it without warning you. I plan to expose them publicly at the preschool's next parent meeting. I explained how I wanted to show the evidence in front of their colleagues and the parents, so that there was no covering it up. They crossed so many lines. They deserve to face the consequences. Ben shouldn't be allowed to quietly move on to another school and do this again, and Anna, well, she's going to face her own fallout. Rebecca listened quietly, her brows knit. That's very public, she said softly. Are you sure? No, I'm not sure, I admitted, rubbing my temple. But I'm furious and I feel it's the only way to really hold them accountable. Part of me wants to just confront Anna at home, yell and scream, and then file for divorce and be done. But then I think of how they carried on so brazenly, lying to everyone, and I feel like just a private confrontation lets them off too easy. They risked so much and thought we were fools. I want them to feel just as humiliated as we do. Rebecca gave a small nod. I understand. Believe me, the idea of Ben being publicly shamed right now, I have no sympathy for him. She then looked a bit worried. But what about your children? Won't a public scandal at the school affect them too? Tom goes there, and if this becomes gossip in town. That was something I had agonized over. I know. I'm trying to handle it delicately. Tom is young enough that if it happens among adults, he might not fully grasp it. Mia is at the elementary school, so she won't directly hear it at the event, but small-town gossip. It could reach her somehow. I hate that. But either way, they will know we're divorcing and something bad happened. There's no avoiding pain entirely. At least this way I can maybe shield them from the ugliest details until they're older, and ensure I get custody to protect them from instability. Rebecca sighed. I guess there's no easy way. I'm filing for divorce as soon as I can get to a lawyer, she said, a fierceness in her tone that I respected. He doesn't get to do this and keep me, but I won't tell him yet. If you need me to wait until after this meeting to avoid tipping them off, I can do that. She swallowed. It's hard, but I can. I want to see him face consequences too. I felt a flood of gratitude. It's a lot to ask. Are you sure you're okay with that? She gave a humorless little laugh through her tears. Okay, not at all. But I think I'd like to see this confrontation. When is this meeting? I realized I needed the exact timing. The preschool did have a New Year orientation coming up for parents and kids next week. It was on the calendar for August 20th in the evening. I told her about it. If you want to come, you could, I suggested. Even if your kids aren't enrolled yet, maybe as Ben's spouse, you'd have a reason. She considered it. I doubt I could slip in unnoticed, and I'm not sure me being there publicly is a good idea. My girls would be with a sitter, and that scene might get too heated if I jump in. It might be better if you handle it and I confront him at home right after. Or even during. Honestly, part of me wants to walk in with you and slap him across the face. Her eyes flashed angrily. But I'll restrain myself. I assured her I'd share everything that happened if she wasn't there in person. In the end, she decided to not attend the meeting but to definitely confront him privately that same night. We exchanged cell numbers and promised to keep each other updated. We agreed not to mention a word to our respective spouses yet. She thanked me, in between tears, for telling her the truth. I told her I was sorry to be the bearer of such news, but that I believed she had the right to know. After hanging up, I felt both relieved and even more anxious. Relieved that I had an ally of sorts, or at least that I didn't have to carry this burden alone. But anxious, because now the plan was truly set in motion. There was no going back. Over the next week, I was meticulous about my behavior around Anna. I acted as normally as I could manage. We went through our routines, dinners, caring for the kids, small talk about our days. Each night was torture, but I steeled myself. Interestingly, perhaps because of my earlier feigned headache and tiredness, Anna seemed to give me space and didn't press me much. In fact, I suspect she was relieved I wasn't probing her odd activities anymore. She likely thought her cover story for the meeting had been successful. Perhaps in her mind, everything was back under control. One night, a few days before the planned parent meeting, I did notice her studying me quietly as I read on the couch after the kids were in bed. She sat at the other end, supposedly watching TV, but her gaze kept flicking over. Finally, she spoke. "Rob, are you happy? I mean, with us, with life in general?" The question caught me off guard. I lowered my book and looked at her, forcing a gentle expression. "Where's that coming from?" She shrugged and gave a little forced chuckle. "I don't know. You just seem distant lately. I worry that maybe I haven't been the best wife lately, being so caught up with work and all. And you work so hard too, we hardly have time for just us." She was fishing, I could tell, testing the waters of my mood. Or perhaps her guilt was surfacing. I chose my words carefully. "I have been tired, I'll admit. And you're right, life's been busy, but I'm okay. I figured you were the one who might be unhappy and you've seemed stressed." She bit her lip. "I was stressed. Things have been hectic, but it's getting better." She scooted a little closer and reached out to rest a hand on my arm. I had to fight not to pull away. "Maybe after the orientation next week, once things calm down, we could take a day trip with the kids to the lake or something? You know, family time." I looked at her hand on my arm. It felt like a lie. Everything about this moment, her seeking reassurance from me while deceiving me, was a lie. But I smiled faintly. "That sounds nice. I think the kids would love that." Anna looked at me with what seemed like relief and affection. "I love you, Robert," she said quietly. My throat tightened. There was a time those words from her meant the world to me. Now they just rang hollow. Still, I replied softly, "I love you too, Anna." It was one of the last times I'd ever say it. And even as I said it, I knew it was no longer true in the same way. I loved who I thought she was. I loved the mother of my children. But I could not love the person who betrayed me like this. She leaned in and I allowed her to kiss me. I even kissed back gently, playing the part. It took every ounce of willpower not to recoil. She sighed against me, seeming content in that moment. "We'll be okay," she whispered, maybe to herself. I closed my eyes briefly. "Yeah," I lied. "We will." Chapter 6. Scandal at the Kindergarten. The night of the parent orientation meeting finally arrived. I prepared everything I needed. I printed out some of the clearest photos I had. The one of them kissing was grainy but recognizable. Another of them holding hands in the car, and a few damning snippets of their chat, carefully cropped to highlight the words without revealing extraneous personal info. I wasn't sure exactly how I'd present these, but I had them in a folder. I also had the video queued on my phone in case I needed to show it. and I had a calm fury burning in my chest to drive me forward. Before heading to the school that evening, I made an excuse at home. I told Anna I wanted to attend the orientation as a parent, to support Tom and see what was planned for the new year. She looked surprised. In the past, she had always handled these, and I watched the kids at home if needed. But it made sense since I was a parent. She gave a little shrug and said I was welcome to come, though I noticed a flicker of worry in her eyes. Perhaps she was nervous having me and Ben in the same room, even unknowingly. But what reason could she give for me not to come? We drove separately. She needed to be there early as a teacher to help set up. I would arrive a bit later with other parents. Mia stayed at my mom's with the excuse that we'd pick her up after. No need for her to attend a preschool meeting. I pulled into the parking lot a little after the scheduled start time to ensure everyone was gathered. My heart was pounding, but I felt oddly calm at the same time. As if an invisible switch had been flipped inside me, cold determination took over. I spotted a few familiar faces of other parents as I walked in. Some nodded hello, and I responded in kind. I was known to most as the friendly mechanic dad of Tom. Nothing more, nothing less. The orientation was held in the preschool's modest multi-purpose room, basically the gymnasium which doubled as an event hall, decorated with colorful alphabet posters and some kid art. There were rows of small chairs set out for parents. At the front, the preschool director, Miss Hamill, was speaking about the upcoming year. Anna was off to one side with a few colleagues, and Ben, I saw him, was on the opposite side of the front, arms crossed casually, looking every bit the confident instructor. When I entered, Anna's eyes flicked to me and she gave a brief, slightly strained smile. I smiled back, pretending all was well, and took a seat in the back row. I scanned for any sign of Rebecca, but as decided, she wasn't there. It was just me, alone with this secret and about to detonate it. I noticed as the director talked, Anna was doing her best not to meet Ben's eyes, and vice versa. They were keeping things professional in front of everyone, but I caught Ben stealing a glance at her once. It made my blood simmer. The director wrapped up the general announcements and then invited teachers to meet with parents in small groups by class. Since Tom was technically going to be in the older preschool class, not Anna's class, thankfully, but another teacher's, those parents started to move to a corner to chat with that teacher. Before everyone split up too far, I stood up. My legs felt stiff and heavy, but I forced them to move. "Excuse me, Miss Hamill," I called out, loud enough for the room to still. The director, a kindly older woman, looked at me curiously. "Yes, Mr. Thompson?" At that moment, Anna's head whipped toward me. She looked puzzled, a little concerned. Ben's expression was cautious, not yet alarmed, but wondering what I as a parent needed to say to the whole room. Every face turned to me. My heart thudded, but I cleared my throat and projected my voice firmly. "I'm sorry to interrupt. I just have something I think all the parents and staff might need to be aware of." A hush fell. I saw Anna frown slightly. "Rob?" she mouthed, as if unsure what I was doing. I walked toward the front, all eyes following. I saw a couple of my fellow parents exchange glances, and one of the teachers by Anna's side, Sarah, furrow her brow in confusion. My voice came out surprisingly steady. "This won't take long, but I believe it's important. It concerns professional conduct here at Little Oaks and the integrity we expect from those watching over our children." Miss Hamill looked a bit baffled. Mr. Thompson, is there an issue? Perhaps we could discuss after—" I gently raised a hand to stop her. "It involves you too, ma'am, and everyone here, I'm afraid." I set my manila folder on a small table at the front that had been used to hold handouts. I heard Anna speak up nervously, stepping forward. "Robert, what are you doing?" Her voice had a quiver. Perhaps a sixth sense was telling her something was very wrong. I looked her dead in the eyes, and for the first time in weeks, I let my hurt show in my gaze. She must have seen something because she blanched, confusion turning to a sort of fear. I then turned to address the room. "I'm sorry to say that 2 members of the Little Oaks staff have been engaging in extremely inappropriate behavior. Behavior that betrays the trust of all of us parents and makes a mockery of the values this school stands for." A ripple went through the room. Miss Hamill stepped forward, looking alarmed. "What are you referring to?" Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Ben straighten up, uncrossing his arms. His posture grew stiff. He glanced toward Anna. who was now wide-eyed and pale. I continued, voice rising a notch with righteous anger. I'm talking about an affair between one of the teachers, my wife Anna Thompson, and the new coach Ben Carter. Gasps erupted. A mother put a hand to her mouth. Sarah, Anna's coworker friend, looked as if she couldn't believe what she'd heard and turned to stare at Anna. Anna herself went white as a sheet. What, Rob, that's not… she began, voice shaking. Ben stepped forward, face flushing red. This is highly inappropriate, he snapped, though I noticed his voice waver. We should discuss this privately. I cut him off sharply. Privately? You'd like that, wouldn't you, Ben? I spat his name. Keep it all private so you can keep pretending to be the upstanding coach while sleeping with my wife behind closed doors? There were a few stifled cries of, "Oh my God," from some parents. The director looked like someone had poured ice water over her, utterly shocked. Mr. Thompson, these are serious accusations, she said, her voice trembling. I reached into my folder, hands steady. They are more than accusations. I have proof. Anna rushed towards me, her hands out as if to physically stop me. Robert, please, don't do this here, she pleaded, her face desperate, eyes already welling with tears. I sidestepped her, my jaw clenched. Don't you touch me, I hissed quietly, and she halted, flinching as if I'd slapped her. I had never used that tone with her before. I pulled out the printed photos. The first one I held up was the clearest shot of Anna and Ben in our car at the park, mid-kiss. It was a bit grainy, but Anna's face was recognizable, as was Ben's profile. I held it up high for the room to see. A collective shock went through the audience. Some of the parents were whispering furiously. One father looked at Ben and muttered something angrily. Here are Mr. Carter and Mrs. Thompson, just a few weeks ago at Miller Park, engaging in a romantic rendezvous, I announced. My voice echoed in the silent gym. Ben's face had turned from red to ashen. This is out of context, he stammered, trying to find words. Nothing happened. This is a misunderstanding. I barked a bitter laugh. Misunderstanding? You think all these people are blind? I tossed the photo on the table and grabbed another print. A screenshot of a section of their chat log where they professed love for each other. I read it aloud, my voice dripping with pain and anger. I miss you so much it hurts, written by Anna to Ben, dated 2 weeks ago. And Ben's reply, you are my everything. I can't wait until we don't have to hide. I slapped that paper down for effect. Anna sobbed, stop, Rob, please. She looked around at the faces of parents and colleagues, mortified, tears spilling down her cheeks. Please, let's go outside and talk, please. Miss Hamill's face was now red with anger and dismay. She turned to Anna and Ben, voice stern and shaking. Is this true? Anna, Ben, is any of this true? Ben opened his mouth, but no sound came out. Anna covered her face, crying, unable to answer. That in itself was answer enough for most. Parents started murmuring loudly. One parent said, this is disgusting. We trust you with our kids. Another said, how could they do this and at school property? Sarah tried to put a hand on Anna's shoulder, but Anna stepped away, face crumpled in shame and distress. I wasn't done. Perhaps I should have stopped, but all the hurt poured out of me in that moment. For months, these two have been carrying on an affair, I said hoarsely. Lying to their spouses, lying to all of us. Meeting during or after work, even using school time for their betrayal. I gestured to the evidence on the table. I have more, a video of them at the park, countless messages. They were planning to run off together eventually, as you can see by their own words. Ben finally snapped out of his silence, and anger flashed across his face. You son of a… he snarled and suddenly lunged at me, fist raised. Perhaps he thought I was an easier target for his rage than facing everyone else, but I was ready. I stepped back and braced, and a couple of fathers in the audience leapt up and grabbed Ben by the arms before he could take a swing at me. Hey man, calm down, one shouted. Don't do something you'll regret, pal, the other warned him. Ben struggled for a moment, then sagged as they held him. He looked around, realizing how many pairs of eyes were on him with utter disdain. His reputation was destroyed in an instant, and he knew it. Anna was wailing softly, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. She wasn't even sure who she was saying it to. Me? The staff? The parents? God? The director stepped forward between me and the disgraced two. This is… well, We will need to investigate and take appropriate action, she said to the room, her voice authoritative despite the quaver. She looked at Anna and Ben with contempt and disappointment. Mr. Carter, Mrs. Thompson, I think you should both leave the premises immediately. We will be holding meetings with the school board about this. It wasn't an official firing on the spot, but it might as well have been. The writing was on the wall. Ben grimaced, pulling his arms free from the fathers who'd restrained him. He straightened his shirt and without a word, strode quickly out of the room, not meeting anyone's gaze. The doors swung behind him. Anna remained, shaking, reaching toward me. "Rob, please," she sobbed, mascara running. "Let's talk, please." I felt hollow looking at her. This woman in front of me was a stranger wearing my wife's face. "There's nothing to talk about, Anna. I'll be filing for divorce. Effective immediately, you can consider yourself not my wife anymore." My voice was cold, final. She crumpled to the floor in tears, covering her face. A couple of staff members, including Sarah, hesitantly moved to help her up, shock and pity on their faces. I picked up my folder and turned to the stunned audience. "I apologize for causing a scene, but I thought you all had the right to know what's been happening with the people entrusted to set examples for our children." One mother nodded fervently, a disgusted look at Anna. A father patted my shoulder as I stepped away, murmuring, "I'm sorry, man." Without another glance at Anna, I walked out of the room. The moment I exited the school doors, the adrenaline that had been carrying me drained out. My hands started shaking. I stumbled to my truck in the parking lot, drawing ragged breaths of the cool night air. It was done. My carefully planned revenge had executed almost exactly as intended. They were exposed, humiliated. There was no hiding now. Before I drove off, I pulled out my phone and sent a single text to Rebecca. "It's done. He's been exposed. I'm so sorry for all of this. He might be on his way home. Be prepared." Almost instantly, she replied, "Thank you. I am ready. Stay safe." I dropped my phone on the passenger seat, started the engine, and left that place, the echoes of shocked voices and my wife's sobbing fading as I drove into the darkness. The marriage was destroyed, the family broken, but it was not my doing. It was theirs. I had merely delivered the consequences. Chapter 7, Consequences. August 21st, September 2019. In the immediate aftermath of the public confrontation, the pieces of our lives fell swiftly and dramatically. That night, I didn't return home until very late. I had picked up Mia from my mother's on the way home and brought both kids back to our house. Thankfully, both were half asleep by then. Mia sensed something was off. Perhaps it was the tension in my face or the absence of their mother. But I told her gently that Mommy had to stay at work late and that everything was okay for now. I think she was too sleepy to question it much, and I tucked her in with extra kisses. Tom was already out cold in my arms, not knowing a thing. Anna was not at the house when I got there. Perhaps she couldn't bear to face me, or perhaps she was still at the school talking to Miss Hamill or others in the aftermath. It was just as well. I didn't want to see her that night. The next morning she returned. I was in the kitchen making the kids breakfast when I heard the front door open slowly. Anna stepped in, looking broken. Her eyes were bloodshot and her face drawn, as if she hadn't slept at all. She wore the same clothes from the night before. Mia and Tom both looked up at her in surprise. "Mommy!" Tom shouted, not aware of anything amiss, and ran to hug her legs. Mia hung back, noticing the tension in the air. Anna managed a weak smile and patted Tom's head. "Hi, baby," she whispered. Her eyes flicked to me and immediately filled with tears. "Rob, can we talk, please?" I glanced at the clock. I had already called into the garage to take the day off, knowing this was coming. "Kids, why don't you go watch some cartoons in the living room for a bit, okay?" I said, keeping my voice calm. Mia looked between us. "Is everything okay, Daddy?" she asked in a small voice. My heart clenched. I forced a reassuring smile. "We'll be okay, sweetheart. Mommy and I just need to have a grown-up talk. Go on, take your brother." Mia gently took Tom's hand and led him to the living room. As soon as they were out of earshot, I faced Anna. She stood there wringing her hands, tears spilling over. "I'm so sorry," she choked out. "Robert, I'm so sorry. I don't even know where to begin." I felt strangely calm. "Begin with when it started," I said quietly. "How long?" She wiped her face, voice trembling. It started a few months ago, late May. We we were just talking, and it got out of hand. I never meant to hurt you. I never meant for any of this to happen. I let out a bitter breath. Yet you did hurt me, and our children, and yourself. You chose to do this, Anna, over and over for months. She sobbed, stepping closer. I was stupid and selfish. I have no excuse. I was going through some kind of, I don't know, a crisis. I felt like my life was just monotonous, and I wasn't thinking. Monotonous, I echoed, anger rising despite my efforts to stay composed. I kept my voice low to not alarm the kids. We had a good life, Anna. A family. Was that so boring that you had to sneak around with a stranger for excitement? She shook her head frantically. It wasn't like that. I mean, Ben made me feel noticed and alive in a way I hadn't in a while. But I know it was wrong. I was wrong. You have every right to hate me. I stared at her, this woman I had loved deeply, and felt a well of sadness. I don't hate you, Anna, I said. And it was true in that moment. I just felt empty. I'm deeply hurt and angry at what you've done, but hate, that's a strong word. I don't have energy to hate. I'm too tired. She stepped closer, daring to reach out and gently touch my arm. If there's any chance, any at all, that you could ever forgive me, I would do anything to fix this. I'll quit my job, I'll go to counseling, I'll prove myself every day for the rest of my life if I have to. Her voice cracked. Please, Rob, I love you. I love our family. I don't want to lose that. I know I messed up more than I can ever make up for, but please. I looked down at her hand on my arm and then back at her face. Her eyes were overflowing, her whole body trembling with remorse. Once my instinct would have been to comfort her when she was this upset, but not now. I gently removed her hand from my arm. It's too late, Anna, I said softly but firmly. You killed this marriage the moment you decided to betray me and kept doing it. The moment you lied to my face day after day. That trust is broken. I can't get it back, and honestly, I don't want to. She cried harder, covering her mouth to muffle the sound. I continued. I'm filing for divorce today. I already have an appointment with a lawyer this afternoon. She nodded miserably. If that's what you really want, I understand. She sank into a chair, shoulders shaking. The kids. Oh God, the kids. That part hurt the most. They'll be okay. I'll make sure of it, I said, swallowing the lump in my throat. I intend to ask for primary custody. I think we both know their home should remain here with me. You're not in a position to care for them right now. She closed her eyes, fresh shame crossing her face. I got a call early this morning from the district. They asked for my resignation, she said quietly. I resigned. I'm not teaching there anymore. I had expected as much. The scandal would ensure neither she nor Ben would keep their jobs. What about Ben? I asked flatly. Her jaw tightened a bit at his name. He was terminated effective immediately, I heard. The school didn't want to risk keeping him on given everything. She looked away. Not that it matters between him and me. I told him last night to never speak to me again. I raised an eyebrow, mildly surprised. You did? She nodded, wiping her cheeks. After you left the meeting, I was devastated. He tried to talk to me, but I couldn't even look at him. I realized what I'd done, what I'd thrown away. She looked at me imploringly. He was never worth it, Rob. It was a stupid infatuation. The second it all blew up, he just faded. I didn't even want to be near him. I drove around all night, thinking about how badly I ruined everything. I believed her that she felt regret, but it changed nothing now. The time to value what she had was before destroying it. Well, I said after a moment, I'm glad you came to your senses about him for whatever that's worth. His wife, Rebecca, knows everything too. She's divorcing him. Anna flinched at that. Perhaps it struck her that another family was shattered because of this. I'm so sorry, she whispered again. I rubbed my face, feeling very tired. You should find somewhere else to stay for now, I said, steeling myself. Maybe with your sister or your parents. I don't want you here in the house. It's too hard, and the kids will be confused. She opened her mouth as if to protest, then hung her head and nodded. I can go to my sister's, she said dully. She lives across town. I'll pack some things. We divided the next few hours in painful awkwardness. I kept the children occupied in the living room, trying to act like everything was fine, while Anna quietly moved through the house gathering clothes and essentials into a couple of suitcases. She avoided the kids at my request until we could figure out what to tell them. When she was ready to leave, we stood by the front door. Mia and Tom noticed the luggage and grew concerned. I gently told them that Mommy would be staying at Auntie's for a little while. Tom, not fully understanding, started to cry for his mom. That nearly broke me. Anna dropped to her knees and hugged him tight, crying as well. "It's okay, baby. Mommy just needs a little time. I love you so much," she whispered to him. Mia's eyes welled with tears too, and Anna pulled her into the hug. "I love you, Mia. I'm so sorry, sweetheart," she said. Mia, wise beyond her 8 years, just nodded into her shoulder, crying but saying nothing. I could only stand by, heart aching for my children. After a long, tearful goodbye, Anna walked out the door, 2 suitcases in hand. I stood by the window and watched her load them into her car and drive away, shoulders shaking as she wept. It was a sight I never thought I'd see, my wife leaving our home, our kids crying behind me. I took a deep breath and turned to Mia and Tom, kneeling down to hug them both. "Listen," I said gently. "Mommy did something that made things very sad and difficult for all of us. We're going to have to live apart for a while." My voice shook despite trying to be steady. "But I promise you, I'm here for you and I love you. Mommy loves you too. We're going to be okay." Mia looked at me through tears. "Are you and Mommy getting a divorce?" she asked, stumbling a bit on the word. I realized she must have heard it somewhere, maybe on TV or from friends with divorced parents. I nodded slowly. "We might, honey. We probably will. I'm so sorry." She hugged me tightly and Tom squished in, not fully understanding but upset because everyone else was. We stayed like that for a while. Over the next weeks, the fallout spread through our small community. Everyone seemed to know. Some of it was fueled by parents who had been at the meeting. The gossip passed quickly. The mechanic's wife cheated with the new coach. Most folks were sympathetic to me openly. I got quiet nods of respect in the grocery store, a few "how are you holding up?" questions from acquaintances. It was mortifying in its own way, but I also felt oddly validated. I didn't hide what happened. I refused to pretend for appearances' sake. As for Anna, she stayed largely out of sight. She was laying low at her sister's. I heard from a mutual friend that she was struggling emotionally, which wasn't surprising. She had lost her job and much of her good standing in town. Some parents who used to chat with her avoided her now. The judgment was heavy. I took no joy in that, but I didn't exactly defend her either. She made her bed. Ben and his family quietly left town about a week after everything. I heard from Rebecca only once more directly. She sent me a message saying she had confronted Ben, and he left their house after she kicked him out. She thanked me again for telling her the truth and wished me and the kids well. I wished her and her daughter's strength. Beyond that, I didn't pry into their matters. I suspect they moved back to wherever they came from to escape the scandal. My focus shifted to the legal process and the kids. My lawyer was efficient, and given the circumstances, things went as smoothly as a divorce could go. Michigan is a no-fault state, so the court didn't require proof of adultery to grant the divorce. But my lawyer did make it clear in negotiations that if Anna tried to contest custody or finances, we were prepared to bring all the evidence forward. She didn't contest. In fact, Anna waived any claim to spousal support. She said she didn't want anything from me, probably out of guilt and understanding she was the one at fault. We agreed to split our modest assets fairly, and that the kids would stay with me. Technically, we agreed on joint legal custody, so she still had a say in major decisions for them, but I was to have sole physical custody, meaning they lived with me full-time. We arranged a visitation schedule. She could see them every other weekend during the day, under the condition that she was in a stable state and that the environment was right for the kids. Initially, she was so ashamed and depressed that she actually didn't exercise her visitation rights much, aside from a few short playdates at her sister's house. By early October, the divorce was finalized in record time, uncontested and straightforward given our agreement. Just like that, a 10-year marriage was legally over. Telling the kids that we were officially divorced was tough, even if they had adjusted somewhat to the new routine. Mia had cried a lot in the first couple of weeks, but eventually settled down with the help of a child therapist I took her to, just to help process her feelings. Tom was young enough that as long as he had one parent consistently there, me, and saw mom occasionally, he was okay. I threw myself into being the best single dad I could. I kept our routines as stable as possible. Breakfast every morning, school drop-offs and pickups, dinner together every night. My mom and my brother stepped up immensely. They helped watch the kids if I had to work late, and invited us to Sunday dinners so the kids felt surrounded by family love. Meanwhile, I returned to work at the garage after a few days off. The familiar rhythm of fixing engines was therapeutic in its own way. A few regular customers awkwardly expressed their sympathy about the situation, which I appreciated in their intent, though it was painful to discuss. I kept it brief. "Thank you, it's been rough, but we'll get through," and tried to let my work speak for itself. Little Oaks Preschool, in the aftermath, hired a new teacher to replace Anna, and a new coach as well. I heard some of the remaining staff felt terribly about what happened. Sarah, Anna's coworker friend, reached out to me once, mainly to say she was so sorry for not seeing the signs and that if I needed any help with Tom in class, she'd be there. It wasn't her fault at all, of course, but it was kind of her to offer support. As for Anna, in those early days after the divorce was settled, she mostly stayed with her sister and tried to pick up the pieces. She did ask a few times tearfully if I would ever consider giving our marriage another chance. My answer was always a firm no. Too much had been broken, and every time I looked at her, all I could see was her and Ben in that car, or those messages where she told him he was her everything. That image would likely haunt me for a long time to come. Over time, her begging turned more to acceptance, though it came with deep regret. She focused on trying to at least salvage a relationship with the kids. Gradually, I allowed her slightly more visitation, such as taking them to a movie or park on a Saturday afternoon here and there. But I remained careful. My trust in her was shattered. I certainly wasn't going to let her yank the kids around emotionally either. To her credit, she was always punctual, returning them, and behaved respectfully towards me during those exchanges, though we barely spoke more than a few necessary words. The consequences of her actions were everywhere. Our family name, once just another normal family in town, was now associated with that scandal, at least for a while. Some of that gossip died down by the end of the year, as new happenings took over people's attention, but those directly involved wouldn't forget. Ben's name became a bit of a local cautionary tale. I overheard one parent at the elementary school saying, "Well, we don't want another Ben Carter situation," when discussing a new male teacher. Petty, perhaps, but it showed how tarnished he was by what happened. And Anna, I think for a long time she couldn't step into the grocery store without feeling people stare or whisper. Eventually, she started going out more normally, but she confided in me once, in a rare, amicable conversation regarding the kids, that she was considering moving to a different town after some time to truly get a fresh start. I understood and wouldn't stand in her way as long as she stayed in touch for the kids. Through it all, I kept reminding myself that as awful as this was, at least the worst was over. The lies had been uncovered, the affair ended, the legal matters sorted. Now it was about healing and rebuilding. For me, that meant focusing on Mia and Tom, and on myself when I had the time. I joined a local divorce support group for single parents for a few weeks. It helped to share experiences and know I wasn't alone in sudden single parenthood or betrayal. I found solace in small things: an evening beer on the porch after the kids slept, the sound of them laughing while watching a cartoon, the steady purr of an engine I fixed at the shop. One night, about a month after the divorce was finalized, I was tucking Tom into bed and he asked innocently, "Daddy, are you happy?" It caught me off guard. I smiled and said, "I'm happier now that I have you and your sister with me." It was the truth. Despite all the heartbreak, I felt a certain peace in having come through the storm intact with my children by my side. The consequences of Anna's choices had been devastating. Yes, for her, for Ben, for our families. But in those consequences also lay the seeds of something new. A chance for me to shape a better life for the kids and myself, built on honesty and trust, however long it would take to fully heal. Chapter 8. After the Storm. Summer 2020. A year passed, then another. Life settled into a new normal. The fury and pain of the storm that tore my family apart slowly dulled into a distant ache. In its place, a quiet resilience grew. I focused on what mattered most: Mia and Tom. They flourished under a stable routine. Tom moved up from preschool to kindergarten, and Mia into fourth grade, both of them adapting well. Our house became a place of just the three of us, and though that was a big change, we made it a loving home. Pancake breakfasts on Saturdays, movie nights on Fridays, and plenty of Dad's bad jokes in between. Laughter crept back into our lives bit by bit. I continued running the auto shop, which thankfully weathered my personal turmoil without much damage. In fact, business improved slightly over time, perhaps out of community support or simply because I threw myself into work when the kids were at school. Either way, the routine of diagnosing engines and solving mechanical problems was a comforting constant. Machines made sense. They broke and you fixed them. Human hearts? Those were trickier, but I learned you could mend those too with enough time and care. My close friends and family were my lifeline. My brother Mark would come by every other week with his wife and kids for a barbecue, filling our yard with the sounds of family that reassured the kids that we still had a big support network. My mom doted on Mia and Tom more than ever, volunteering to babysit at the drop of a hat and sneaking them sweets and extra bedtime stories whenever they stayed over at Grandma's. One evening, about a year after the divorce, my friend Joe, who also worked with me at the garage, insisted I join him at O'Malley's, the local pub, for a guys' night. I was hesitant. I hadn't gone out socially much since everything happened. But Mark offered to watch the kids, urging me to relax a little. At the pub, amid the clink of glasses and low hum of sports commentary on the TV, Joe raised a beer and clinked it against mine. "To surviving and thriving, Rob," he said with a grin. I smirked and took a sip. Thriving might be a stretch, but surviving, I'll drink to that. "You're too modest, man," Joe replied. "Not many could go through what you did and come out the other side as solid as you. Your kids are happy. You're keeping it together. I respect it." I felt a warmth of gratitude. "I had a lot of help, you included." He waved it off. "What are friends for? Besides, you do the same." We sat in companionable silence for a moment, watching a baseball game on the bar TV. Then Joe cleared his throat. "So, when are you going to get back out there? You're a catch-single devoted dad, honest guy, can fix a car like nobody's business." He chuckled. I rolled my eyes good-naturedly. "I appreciate the vote of confidence, but I'm not exactly eager to jump into anything." He gave me a sympathetic look. "I get it, trust me, I do. But not all women are, well, you know." I knew he was trying to say not everyone will betray you, without saying it. I nodded. "I'm not bitter on the whole world, if that's what you're worried about. It's just, my energy is on the kids, and on myself. I need to make sure I'm whole again before I could even think of sharing life with someone else. If that ever happens." Joe raised his hands. "Fair enough. And hey, maybe you find someone when you're not looking. But no rush. Just as long as you're not closing off your heart completely." I took another swig of beer and thought about that. Was I closed off? I still felt twinges of hurt when I thought about what Anna did, but I also felt like I'd largely moved forward. Forgiveness. That was harder. I wasn't sure I'd ever fully forgive her, but I didn't dwell on anger like I used to in the early days. It was more like a scar now, tender if you pressed it, but otherwise just a mark of what I'd been through. "I'm open to wherever life takes me," I finally said. "But I'm not actively searching right now, and I'm okay with that." Joe smiled. "All right, just know the ladies at church still ask about you." He gave me a teasing nudge. I laughed. "Oh God, please tell me you haven't been playing matchmaker with the church moms." He feigned innocence. "Who, me? I would never." We both cracked up. It felt good to laugh freely. In that moment, I realized I truly was doing okay. Maybe even well. I could joke about the situation, at least indirectly, and I could imagine a future that wasn't defined by betrayal, even if it was undefined in terms of romance. Later that night, I returned home and peeked in on the kids sleeping soundly in their beds. I stood in the hallway for a moment listening to their soft breathing and felt a swell of contentment. We had weathered the worst of it together. They were my world, and that was enough for me. As for Anna, our interactions had stabilized into a cordial but somewhat distant routine. By the second year after the divorce, she had moved to a neighboring town and found a job as an assistant at a daycare center. I think she intentionally chose a more behind-the-scenes role, perhaps not trusting herself to be in a teacher position again just yet, or maybe it was all she could find given how she left her last job. Either way, she was slowly rebuilding her life. She would come to visit the kids a couple of times a month, usually taking them out for lunch or to a park on a Saturday. I noticed as time went on that she seemed to be taking better care of herself again. The last I saw her, she had her hair done nicely and wore a new dress, and she managed a genuine, if small, smile when greeting me. I remained polite and friendly for the kids' sake, and she reciprocated. We never really talked about us or the past. That chapter was closed. Communication was limited to logistics about the children, and that was fine by me. One afternoon when she dropped the kids back at my place, Anna lingered at the door after the kids ran off to show each other something they got at the toy store. She cleared her throat. "Robert, I just want to say thank you for being a good father and for not poisoning the kids against me. I know you could have, and you never did. I appreciate it." I looked at her, a bit taken aback. Her eyes were earnest and a little sad. I shrugged slightly. "You're their mother. No matter what happened between us, I wouldn't do that to them. They'll figure things out in their own way when they're older. I want them to love both their parents." She nodded, wiping a stray tear. "You're a good man, Rob. I truly am sorry. For everything." "I know," I said quietly. It was the closest we'd come to discussing the past in a long time. I didn't want to dive back into it. "Take care, Anna." "You too," she whispered, then turned and left. I closed the door and let out a breath. It struck me that I felt no anger in that exchange, just a distant melancholy. Perhaps that was a sign that I had healed more than I realized. As the years went on, I held true to not rushing into relationships. I dated a little, casually, when I felt the loneliness of evenings too strongly. But I was careful about introducing anyone to the kids, and nothing serious developed. I was okay with that. Mia and Tom were growing fast, and I didn't want to miss a moment. I also found time for myself in new hobbies. I joined a local woodworking class, something I'd always wanted to try, and discovered I had a knack for carving little figurines and making furniture. Our house slowly filled with handcrafted items I built, a cathartic and constructive way to fill some of the quieter hours once the kids were asleep or off with their grandma. Through all of this, I often reflected on that fateful choice I made to expose the affair so publicly. Did I have any regrets? It had been dramatic, even traumatic for everyone there. But ultimately, I always came to the same conclusion. I did what I felt was right and necessary at the time. Anna and Ben faced the consequences of their actions. Perhaps it could have been handled more privately, but if I had done it behind closed doors, I suspect I would have still ended up here, divorced, raising the kids alone. The difference was that by exposing it, I reclaimed some power and truth in a situation where I had been kept in the dark. I also think it helped Anna fully confront the gravity of what she'd done, and in a strange way, maybe it pushed her to better herself afterward. Regardless, I made my choice and I stand by it. It wasn't about revenge in the end. It was about truth and protecting my family's future. And looking at my children's faces every day, I know I protected what mattered. On a breezy summer evening in 2020, I sat out on the back porch with a glass of iced tea, watching Mia and Tom chase fireflies in the yard. Their laughter twinkled in the air with the same bright energy as the little lights floating around them. I felt a profound sense of peace and pride. We had come through the storm, and now, in the hush after, life was still good, different, certainly, but good. I leaned back, gazing up at the darkening sky where the first stars appeared. There was a time I thought my life was ruined, that I'd never be okay again. But here I was, heart still beating, surrounded by love, and looking forward to whatever tomorrow would bring. I had survived the worst and found myself again in the calm after the storm. Epilogue, Memories of the Past. 2025. It's been over 5 years since that painful summer when my life veered off course. 5 years since the divorce, since I became a single dad and started building a new life for myself and my children. So much has changed, and mostly for the better. Mia is a teenager now, 13 and full of confidence and curiosity. Tom is 10, forever my little adventurous boy, always asking to help in the garage or to go fishing on the weekends. As for me, I'm a bit older, a bit grayer at the temples perhaps, but I like to think I'm wiser too. Our lives have found a comfortable rhythm, and while the past rarely occupies my thoughts anymore, every now and then something will stir a memory. A familiar song, a photograph, or even just the quiet of an evening after the kids are asleep. I'll remember the life I had before and how it ended. It's not with bitterness, exactly. More like looking at an old wound that's healed but left a scar. Today, something happened that brought those memories back more strongly than they've surfaced in years. I received a letter, a handwritten letter in the mail, forwarded from my old address. I moved to a slightly bigger house just outside of town 2 years ago to have more space. The looping handwriting on the envelope was immediately recognizable. It was from Anna. I hesitated a long moment before opening it. Anna and I communicate nowadays only sparingly and usually about the kids, and that's mostly via text or email. A physical letter felt significant, perhaps even ominous. I opened the envelope and unfolded the letter. As I read, I found myself slowly sinking into a chair, emotions I hadn't felt in a long time welling up. She wrote, "Dear Robert, I hope you'll read this, even if I don't deserve a moment of your time after everything I did. I'm writing because I need to express some things that I haven't been able to say in person. Things I've learned over these past years and feelings I doubt will ever fully go away. Firstly, I want to congratulate you. I heard from a mutual friend that Mia won a science fair at school and that Tom is playing on a little league team you're coaching. I saw a picture of you all from the county fair," Sarah showed me on her phone. "The kids have grown so much. They're beautiful and look so happy. And you looked happy too, Rob." Seeing that photo brought tears to my eyes, partly from joy that you all are thriving, and partly from sorrow because I wasn't in that picture. I have no one to blame but myself for that. Not a day goes by that I don't regret the choices I made. In the years since our divorce, I've had a lot of time to reflect, to truly understand the gravity of my mistakes. I wanted excitement or validation or who knows what back then, and in chasing something meaningless, I threw away everything meaningful in my life. I need you to know that I understand, deeply, what I destroyed. I destroyed our marriage, our family unit, and in many ways my own happiness. I thought what I was doing would make me happy, but it only brought pain to everyone I love, including myself. It's a hard lesson to learn, and I learned it far too late. I am so sorry, Robert. I know I've said it before, but I say it again now with a heart full of humility and remorse. You gave me 10 years of marriage, 2 wonderful children, and countless memories of kindness and love. And I repaid you by breaking your heart. That guilt will follow me forever. I want you to know that I don't expect anything from this letter. I don't expect forgiveness or a reply. I just wanted to tell you that I'm truly glad to see you and the kids doing well. You are a wonderful father. I always knew you would be, even back when we were just dreaming of having kids. As for me, I've tried to become a better person from the wreckage. I've been in therapy and have worked on my issues. I've tried to make amends in small ways, even if I can't directly fix what I did to you. I do volunteer work now with a local family counseling center, helping others who have gone through painful experiences, hoping maybe I can prevent someone from making the mistakes I made. Our children love you so much, and that is a testament to the love and stability you've given them. Thank you for being there for them and for allowing me to still be in their lives. Even if in a limited way, they need you. You're their rock. I'm grateful, even if it hurts to know I'm not that rock for them. I guess I just needed to say, I'm sorry, and I appreciate the life we once had, even though I squandered it. You were the best thing that ever happened to me, and I threw it away. I will carry that knowledge with me always as I try to move forward. Maybe one day, in some far future, we can sit and talk as old friends. If not, I understand. But know that I wish you every happiness. You deserve that and more. With regret and respect, Anna. By the time I finished reading, I realized my hands were shaking slightly. I set the letter down on the kitchen table and took a deep breath. The late afternoon sun slanted through the window, illuminating motes of dust in the air. For a long moment, I just stared at those floating particles, my mind processing her words. I felt a swirl of emotions, sadness, because the letter dredged up old feelings. A touch of anger, faint but still present, for the pain that once was, but also a kind of pity for Anna. Her words rang true. She had lost so much by her own hand, and she knew it. In a way, hearing that she truly understood the magnitude of what she'd done brought me a measure of closure I didn't realize I was missing. I folded the letter carefully and put it back in its envelope. I didn't know if I would respond. Part of me felt there was no need. Everything that needed to be said was said. Another part thought maybe I would write back a short note at some point, letting her know I appreciated her apology and that I wish her well too. Maybe that would help us both finally lay the past to rest. That evening, after dinner, I found myself flipping through an old photo album, one from the early years of our marriage. I had avoided looking at those for so long, but now it felt okay. The pictures of Anna and me, younger and bright-eyed, at our wedding, holding newborn Mia, celebrating Tom's first birthday, they felt like relics of another life. I could look at those smiling faces and remember the good that was there, without the sharp pain I used to feel. Time had mercifully blurred the agony, leaving behind lessons and, yes, memories. Memories of the past, even painful ones, have their place. They serve as reminders of where we've been, what we've overcome, and how we've grown. My past with Anna was not all bad, far from it. We had love, we had joy, and we created two amazing children. That will always be a part of my story. It's just that our story together ended, and a new one began. As I closed the album, I looked across the living room. Mia was sprawled on the couch texting a friend and listening to music, and Tom was on the rug building a model airplane. This was my life now, and it was a good life. Imperfect, unconventional, perhaps not what I once imagined, but good in all the ways that truly mattered. I decided ultimately to write a brief response to Anna's letter. I kept it kind but honest, telling her I received her words and that I wish peace for her. I didn't delve into forgiveness explicitly, but I did say that I have let go of the anger and that I hope she continues to find her path. I let her know the kids are doing great, which she already knew, and that I appreciated her acknowledging the past so openly. I ended the note with a genuine wish for her happiness. Then I mailed it the next day. Whether or not that makes a difference for her, I can't be sure. But for me, it felt like closing the final page on that chapter of my life with compassion. As I write this entry, I feel a sense of calm. Life has a way of moving forward, carrying us with it. We can choose to anchor ourselves to the pain of the past, or we can learn from it and let the current take us somewhere new. I choose to move forward. The past will always be there, and I carry those memories, but they do not define me anymore. What defines me now is what I've built after. Two incredible kids who are my pride and joy, a sense of integrity I fought to uphold, and a hope for the future that remains undimmed. Anna's letter reminded me that our actions can have lifelong effects on ourselves and others. She will live with her regrets just as I live with the scars. But we both have lives left to live, and maybe that's the mercy of time. It gives us all a chance to be better, to seek happiness, even if it's a different happiness than we once planned. I look ahead and see birthdays, graduations, maybe one day walking my daughter down the aisle or teaching my son how to rebuild his first car. I see quiet mornings and laughter-filled evenings. I see challenges too, of course, life guarantees that, but I've faced worse and come out stronger. In the grand tapestry of my life, this chapter of betrayal and redemption is but one part. It shaped me, changed me, but it doesn't define the whole story. The rest is still being written day by day with love, resilience, and hope. And as I close this diary for now, I do so with gratitude for the lessons learned, for the strength found, and for the future that awaits. The end.